Picture this. You slip quietly through an arched stone gate as twilight falls, leaving behind the gray streets of your medieval city. Ahead lies a garden, a forbidden space walled off from prying eyes and the reach of the church. The hedges are dense and high, braided with thorny roses. You can smell crushed lavender underfoot, thickening the dusk air with a sweetness that almost masks the scent of trampled grass and spilled wine. Somewhere in the distance, laughter erupts, sharp, nervous, quickly stifled. You pause, heart pounding. Behind the silks draping your arms and the perfumed hair, your palms are damp with sweat. Every step deeper into the garden feels like a choice you can never undo. But as your eyes adjust, you realize you're not alone. Shadows move in the dark. Pairs of bodies pressed together behind yew hedges, courtiers whispering secrets between the columns of a marble folly, a cluster of masked women circling a bonfire at the far end of the lawn. The warmth of the summer night does nothing to dispel the chill crawling across your skin. This is not the sanctuary you expected. It's a stage, and you are both performer and prey. You think you know what happens in a medieval love garden. Maybe you picture secret kisses, poetry traded by moonlight, the innocent play of young lovers escaping the harshness of the outside world. You imagine laughter, song, roses handed from palm to trembling palm, a place where desire blooms safely behind stone. But that's the story you've been told. What you're about to experience will shatter it completely, because the real medieval love garden was nothing like the tales. The truth is far more disturbing. These gardens were not sanctuaries. They were traps set by those in power, arenas for dangerous games that would make modern dating apps look like the height of innocence. Here, reputations were bartered and destroyed. Virginities became prizes, favors traded like currency. Every glance was weighed, every gesture carried consequences, and once you stepped through the gate, you belonged to the game. Think the past was prudish? Think again. According to court records from Burgundy in 1371, the Lord's garden is the testing ground of all flesh, where the strong prevail and the weak are marked for shame. The love garden was not a retreat from social order, but its crucible, a place where the rules bent just enough to reveal who held power and who did not. If you misstepped, you might wake the next morning to find your name whispered at every table, your future bargaining chip for someone else's ambition. But here's where it gets worse. These gardens weren't hidden in the shadows of sin. They were constructed at the very heart of courtly life. Noble families designed them as stages for courtship and intrigue, their winding paths echoing the labyrinths of political favor. Monasteries, too, built walled gardens for contemplation, but the line between prayer and pleasure quickly blurred. By the early 1400s, city officials in Paris, Florence, and Avignon were issuing ordinances about disorderly behavior among the hedges, a phrase that concealed 100 unspeakable acts beneath the veneer of polite society. What made these gardens truly horrifying wasn't just the transgressions they hosted, but the way society enabled them. Public spaces were controlled, the church's eye everywhere, but within the walls of the garden, the rules twisted. Here, a priest might serve as chaperone by day and enabler by night. Here, noble women who risked everything for a secret could find themselves ruined by sunrise. Every hedge was a shield and a weapon. Imagine you are led through a corridor of roses toward the heart of the garden. You pass an ancient statue, Venus, chipped but smirking, watching as a masked figure slips a folded letter into your palm. The music grows louder, its notes pulsing with something frantic, animal beneath the surface. Every sense is heightened, the rough bark of the yew, the sticky heat of the air, the sweetness of overripe fruit left on marble trays for the taking. All around you, eyes are watching, hungry, appraising, unforgiving. Why did these places exist? Because in a world where public life was governed by ritual, surveillance, and the constant threat of damnation, the garden offered something both more dangerous and more honest. Here, status was made and unmade. Here, A single night could decide a lifetime. According to the poet Jean de Meun, whose Roman de la Rose was both a guidebook and a warning, the garden is the theater of all desires, and no one leaves unchanged. And neither will you, because as the garden's shadows grow deeper, you begin to sense the cost. Tonight, you're not just a guest at a midnight revel. You're about to discover what happens when power, lust, and fear are woven together, petal by petal, thorn by thorn. The dark truth of the medieval love garden is about to reveal itself, and you will not be able to look away. You move deeper into the labyrinth of hedges, breath shallow, the cool air thick with the aroma of damp earth and wine. Torchlight flickers along winding paths, illuminating faces half hidden behind silk masks. Here, every shadow conceals both danger and opportunity. A pair of lovers disappears behind a marble column, leaving only the impression of movement and the memory of a stifled gasp. For a moment you are tempted to turn back, but the laughter of your peers behind you makes retreat impossible. Your place in the ritual has already been chosen. A steward in black velvet approaches. With a nod, he marks your arrival in a small leather-bound ledger, the same kind used at the court of Burgundy in 1371, where every entrance movements and pairings were carefully recorded, lest a dispute arise. The formality is chilling. Nothing here is left to chance. Every meeting, every whispered promise, every touch, observed, measured, written down. You realize with a cold flush that your night will be remembered long after the garden has gone quiet. This is not some private escapade. You are on display. Your gestures watched not just by hidden eyes but by those appointed to witness, judge, and report. The chaperones are more jailer than guardian, circling the grounds with unreadable faces, ready to intervene, or to look away, depending on the power of those involved. You catch the glint of a bishop's ring as he leans to speak with a noblewoman, his blessing a silent threat. Here, the Church's presence does not protect the innocent. It keeps score. You are drawn into the dance, a slow procession around a circular fountain at the heart of the garden, as music from unseen minstrels drifts through the leaves. Partners are chosen with a glance, but those glances are loaded. Choose poorly, and you might become the subject of rumor or ridicule. Choose well, and you might earn a patron or protector. But the boundaries are always shifting. A rival slips you a cup of honeyed wine, her smile brittle, her gaze lingering on the steward's ledger as if to warn. Everything is noted. Every detail is ammunition for later. But here's where it gets darker. The garden's rules are as twisted as its paths. Ostensibly, this is a celebration of love, a place for courtly games, flirtation, and romance. In reality, every interaction is a test, a risk. Virginity, reputation, family fortune, all are gambled here. Young women are encouraged to compete for the attention of the highest-ranking men. Young men are dared to win favor through wit or daring. At the center of it all, elders orchestrate the pairings, steering matches that serve their own ambitions. For the powerful, the garden is a marketplace. For everyone else, it is a gauntlet. A ripple of unease passes through the crowd as the first scandal of the night erupts. You witness it up close. A girl, perhaps 16, is led away by two matrons after being discovered in a secluded alcove with a lord's son. Her pale face is blank, her fingers stained red from crushed rose petals. The whispers begin immediately. She will be sent to the convent before sunrise. According to a surviving letter from a Parisian courtier in 1412, a single misstep in the garden is enough to end a family's line. The walls remember what the world wants to forget. You feel the net tightening around you. The games escalate as midnight approaches. Riddles are posed, tokens exchanged, oaths sworn in the heat of the moment. But every victory is shadowed by threat. The wrong word, the wrong companion, the wrong eyes meeting yours across the dark. Even kindness can be mistaken for conspiracy. Even laughter can be called seduction. You see the steward's pen hover over his ledger, deciding whether to record your presence at a certain bench with a certain guest. You realize that one small detail, misunderstood, could ruin you. The danger is not just gossip. Punishments for breaking the garden's unspoken code are severe and swift. Men risk losing property or political standing. Women face humiliation, exile, or worse. In Avignon, records from 1399 describe women branded on the face for unchastity committed among the laurels. Even the innocent are not safe. A glance, a rumor, a single piece of silk left behind can doom an entire household. The love garden is a stage set for public sacrifice. But the truth is even more grotesque. The garden is also a laboratory for blackmail. Priests and nobles keep mental lists of who has seen what, who has given in, who can be controlled. Sometimes confessions are extracted under the guise of spiritual counseling, then used as leverage. You overhear a masked cleric murmuring to a blushing youth, "Let us pray together, that I may help you with your guilt." The threat is never spoken aloud, but it does not have to be. As the candles gutter and the sky deepens to black, you are handed a riddle written on parchment, an invitation to a secluded bower. The game is still in play, but now the stakes are personal. You wonder who has orchestrated your pairing, who will be watching from the darkness, what will be said about you in the morning. Now that you've glimpsed the blood-curdling reality behind the love garden's seductive facade, you're beginning to see how history's most beautiful places hid its ugliest secrets. If exposing these forbidden truths resonates with your curiosity, subscribe now to continue unlocking the buried realities history tried to erase. But the night is far from over. The most disturbing games are still ahead, and the garden's grip on you is only tightening. You sit on the cold marble edge of a fountain, clutching the riddle that has summoned you. The garden is quieter now, but beneath the stillness pulses a current of threat, an unspoken knowledge that every secret here is currency, and every rumor a weapon. Moonlight casts tangled shadows on the clipped grass, and for the first time you notice that the most powerful guests are never alone. They move with a retinue of silent watchers, servants, confessors, stewards, all poised to report back to someone richer, higher, more dangerous than you can see. You don't realize until too late that you've been selected. A nobleman whose face you've only glimpsed from a distance, his ring flashing, his cloak trimmed in crimson, appears by your side. His voice is gentle, but every word is a command. He offers you candied almonds, speaks of poetry and music, but his eyes are calculating, assessing what you might give or withhold. Refusal is unthinkable. Acceptance even more perilous. You are flattered, but with each compliment the price grows clearer. Here, consent is not a choice, it is a performance demanded by the rules of the garden, enforced by those who can destroy you with a single whisper. This is not the love of troubadour poems or courtly romances. In the medieval love garden, intimacy is a tool for advancement, and your body becomes a token in someone else's game. The experience is not unique to you. Contemporary records, like the scandalous letters of Margaret of Navarre, preserved in her 1441 household accounts, describe nightly trials by ordeal of love, where the lady's favor is weighed against the will of her father, her confessor, her lord. Your role is to please, to entertain, to yield at the precise moment power demands. But what you don't yet see is the double standard that runs like a poisoned thread through every corner of this place. If you are a young man, your dalliance might be whispered about, even celebrated. Proof of virility or wit, a step up the ladder. Of patronage. If you are a woman, every touch, every word, every unguarded laugh can be twisted into a charge of lechery. You feel the weight of this imbalance every time a masked matron glances your way, her lips pursed, her memory keen. The love garden is not a site of equality. It is a crucible where women's reputations are ground to dust so men's ambitions can flourish. You witness the ritual firsthand. A group of young women are herded toward a rose arbor, instructed to recite verses, sing, dance, flatter their would-be suitors. Their laughter is brittle, edged with fear. You overhear a nobleman boasting that the true prize is not the rose, but the thorn left behind. When one girl hesitates, a moment's silence, a look of uncertainty, the laughter turns. She is marked as cold, unfeminine, perhaps even suspect. The elders exchange glances. Tomorrow she may find herself shut out of invitations, her dowry questioned, her innocence doubted. You realize it is not her hesitation that seals her fate, but the simple fact that someone more powerful wants her ruined. The garden's machinery is well-oiled. Servants, some barely older than you, hover at the edges, ready to fetch, to carry, to relay messages from one shadow to another. Their eyes are sharp, their memories reliable, their tongues carefully leashed. But for a price, almost anything can be arranged. In the household accounts of the Duke of Berry, payments to garden stewards are listed next to sums for entertainments procured. You see it with your own eyes. A steward slips a girl a folded note, the seal broken by someone else's hand before she reads it. Nothing here is truly private. Even the priests are not what they seem. One offers to bless you, his hand resting a heartbeat too long on your shoulder. He asks about your heart's desires, confessions, longings. "I can be your guide," he murmurs, "but guidance is for those who trust." Later, you spot him laughing with the nobleman who first approached you. You remember the lists kept by the clergy, names, preferences, sins. The same men who judge you on Sunday are keeping a record of every secret confessed in the garden. Blackmail is not a side effect. It is the garden's purpose. But here's where the horror grows systematic. The games in the garden are not spontaneous. They are meticulously staged, rehearsed by those who know every rule. The most desirable girls are seated where they will be seen, the richest men given every advantage. Games of chance are rigged, dares engineered, competitions arranged so the desired outcomes are inevitable. The rest of you play along, pretending at romance, but knowing that the true stakes are invisible. Family fortunes, political alliances, lifelong shame or sudden exile. You watch as another youth, his hair still boyishly curled, his voice barely lowered, has his name written on a list by the steward. You see the nobleman's eyes flick to the ledger, then back to the boy. Later, you overhear a bargain struck. A favor now, a place at court promised in return for silence. Nothing is free. Everything comes with a price, a chain of debt stretching long into the future. The night deepens. Somewhere beyond the hedges, a woman is weeping. You hear it, soft, muffled, quickly stifled by the hand of a companion. A rose drops from a sleeve, its petals scattered on the path like evidence of a crime, and as you pass the fountain, your own name is added to a page, a ledger that will decide your fate long after the garden's lanterns have gone cold. Here, in the heart of the medieval love garden, you begin to understand. The real horror is not the broken rules or fleeting scandals, but the system itself. It is a machine built to consume innocence and spit out currency, pleasure, and power. And you, trapped within its walls, cannot escape its grasp. Not tonight, and not for many nights to come. A bell tolls from the distant cathedral, its echo seeping into the garden and pulling you from uneasy reverie. All around you, the revels slow. Servants light fresh lanterns, their faces blank as they pass. You see the bishop himself enter through a wrought iron gate, his gold ring flashing, his cloak dusted with petals. Every guest bows as he glides through the crowd, but the look he gives you is not one of blessing. It is a warning. The church is present in the garden, but its presence does not mean protection. It means oversight and sometimes complicity. You are summoned with a handful of others to a secluded bower lit by tall candles and perfumed with frankincense. Here, the rules are different. The bishop presides over a confession. Yet it is not the safety of your soul that interests him. It is the cataloging of secrets. You kneel and recite the words you are told, but you notice how the questions stray from prayers to probing. Whom did you meet tonight? What did you see? Did you witness any behavior that would trouble a good Christian's conscience? The answers are noted on parchment. Your voice is trembling. You realize that every slip of the tongue, every truth you offer, can be twisted later to serve someone else's ends. In the shadows, a priest whispers to a young woman, her hair concealed under a borrowed veil. "Confess all," he murmurs, "so that you may be pure in the eyes of God." But as she speaks, you see him make a small mark in the margin of a ledger, a quiet addition to the long list of names and indiscretions already recorded tonight. It's a familiar pattern. In Avignon, papal bulls condemned love gardens as dens of sin, but then quietly permitted them to flourish as venues for fundraising and political maneuvering. Churchmen, in public, thundered against lust, while in private they counted the profits and tallied the secrets. You watch the bishop toast the host, their eyes meeting above a cup of spiced wine. It is a bargain as old as power. Silence in exchange for obedience. Threats veiled as blessings. Tonight's garden is not just a social stage. It is an archive of leverage, with the clergy holding the keys. But here's where the ritual turns to spectacle. A masked herald leads you and the others to a clearing where a mock marriage is to be performed. Two guests, chosen not by love, but by the hidden designs of their elders, are joined in a parody of vows, their hands bound by a garland of thorns. The crowd cheers, but the bride's face is pale as death. You see her flinch when the bishop intones a blessing, the Latin syllables twisted into threats. "May God witness your loyalty." You realize this is no game. The wedding is a trial, a test of submission, an ordeal of humiliation. If she refuses, she faces ruin. If she accepts, her reputation is no longer her own. You see another guest forced to play the faithless lover, mocked, shamed, his betrayal, announced by a town crier standing among the laurels. The crowd is merciless, throwing petals, jeering. In Florence, according to a 1427 ordinance, guests subjected to such rituals could be fined or exiled for real crimes exposed during play. The line between performance and punishment is paper thin, but the garden's darkness goes deeper still. After the spectacle, a more secretive ritual begins. Behind the bower, you glimpse a group of cloaked figures gathering around a stone altar, hands joined, voices low. The bishop lingers near, not to intervene, but to observe. Here, forbidden books are read by candlelight, psalms mingling with poetry that would earn a burning if spoken in daylight. It is whispered that some nights the garden is host to secret masses, rituals combining the sacred and the profane. Orgiastic rites, condemned from the pulpit, are performed under ecclesiastical supervision. The same men who denounce sin are often its most meticulous organizers. In the morning, only rumors will remain. Some will whisper about the heretical rites performed at midnight. Others will deny they saw anything. But the consequences linger. A servant caught listening is sent to a monastery in the north, never to be seen again. A noble's daughter vanishes from court, her family accepting a sudden calling to holy orders. The garden is not just a site of pleasure. It is a machine for enforcing obedience, for expelling the troublesome, for branding bodies and souls with the mark of power. You notice the exchange of gifts, tokens, and quiet bribes as dawn threatens the sky. Pearls for a favorable match, gold coins for silence, a promise of a future marriage for compliance. The love garden is an auction, and the highest bidders rarely leave unsatisfied. Yet the losers pay the price for years, sometimes for life. As the lanterns flicker out and the bishop finally departs, you realize the doors are locked behind you. A new ritual is beginning, darker and more secretive than any that came before. The laughter fades, the air grows colder. You sense that your ordeal is not over. Tonight, you must survive the final trial of the love garden, or risk becoming another story whispered in terror beneath the hedges. The garden's walls feel closer now, the hedges taller, the night air bitter and restless. You move slowly through torchlit corridors, past knots of guests who no longer bother to conceal their judgments. The music has died away, replaced by the sound of urgent whispers and the scrape of hurried footsteps on gravel. What began as a night of pleasure has curdled into dread. This is the moment the true cost of the garden is paid, and you sense that payment is due. You are summoned abruptly to the main hall, where a tribunal of elders waits beneath a tapestry heavy with dust and centuries of accusation. A steward reads your name from the ledger. The guests gather in a hush, their faces masks of curiosity and malice. The evidence is presented. A torn scrap of your sleeve found in the wrong hands, a letter intercepted by a servant, a jealous rival's testimony. Each accusation is a thread. Together, they weave a noose. You protest, but the rules of the garden are unyielding. The burden of proof is light, the appetite for scandal insatiable. You recall the fate of Jean de Montaigu, executed in 1409 after love garden rumors spiraled into charges of treason and sorcery. His enemies collected scraps of gossip like arrows, loosed them in the right moment, and watched as his world collapsed. Your judge tonight is no less merciless. A single misstep, a glance, a word, an unguarded laugh has become the centerpiece of a public reckoning. But the ordeal does not end with shame alone. Once you imagined punishment as simple exile or a forced vow of silence. The garden's machinery is more inventive. The same men who engineered your downfall now stand to profit from it. Whispers follow you. The bishop's confessor offers forgiveness for a price. A steward suggests he can forget what he saw if compensated. What feels like kindness is merely negotiation. Secrets, once extracted, are currency. You realize now, the garden's darkest harvest is blackmail. You see it unfold around you. A young nobleman, desperate to save his family's name, hands over a purse of coins to a masked cleric. A merchant's daughter is coerced into accepting a marriage proposal that will ruin her for life. The threats are precise, details from confessions, moments witnessed in shadow, notes left behind. No one is too innocent, too pious, too careful. Your own family is soon implicated. An uncle's business, a sibling's place at court, all at risk unless you comply. The garden's roots snake far beyond the walls, strangling entire lineages for generations. And still, the horror climbs higher. Ritual punishment becomes public theater. You are led through the market square at dawn, forced to wear the garment of shame, a crude tunic marked with ink, its meaning known to every citizen. Women branded on the cheek, men stripped of lands or titles. In Avignon and Paris, records survive of women consigned to convents for lechery in the laurels, men hung from the city gate for lesser crimes. The garden's sentence, once given, is rarely revoked. There is no safety in innocence. In the garden, even the innocent can be condemned. You watch as a servant is accused of listening too well, his hands shaking as he's marched away by church guards. A girl who refused a nobleman's advances is found guilty not of resistance, but of provoking desire. The machinery is indifferent to truth. What matters is who wields the lever. You realize with sick certainty that survival here is not a matter of virtue, but of silence, alliances, and luck. The crowd's gaze becomes the final instrument of punishment. You are paraded past the faces that once welcomed you. Some look away, others watch with grim satisfaction. Your reputation is unmade in real time. Each whisper, each glance, another blow. The love garden, designed for pleasure and intrigue, is revealed at last as a prison of memory, a place where laughter dies and innocence is weaponized. But the final revelation is worse still. As you are led back through the hedges, marked and changed, you glimpse a new arrival. Eyes wide, breath quick, hands nervously smoothing borrowed silk. You recognize the hope and terror on their face, the yearning to belong. You see yourself as you once were, before the garden's game consumed you. In that moment you understand. The machinery will never stop. Every night, someone new will take your place. The cycle continues. Another name, another life offered to the hunger that hides behind roses and song. And as you disappear into the dawn, one question remains. Will anyone ever break free from the garden's grip? Or will the price of pleasure always be paid in blood, shame, and silence? Dawn seeps through the tangled canopy as the final candles gutter and die. The garden is empty now, its hedges scarred, its marble paths scattered with wilted petals and half-burnt invitations. You wander alone, the night's ordeal echoing in every shadow, every distant bell. Gone are the music and laughter. All that remains are ghosts, faces glimpsed through veils, hands trembling as they offered up secrets, footsteps that vanished down corridors where no one was ever truly safe. You pass beneath the arbor where the mock marriage took place, the garland of thorns still tangled in the grass. Here, whispers of joy curdled into sobs, and the promises made beneath the bishop's gaze became lifelong chains. The garden is a graveyard of reputations, yours among them. You think of those who vanished after last night, the servant exiled for knowing too much, the noblewoman cloistered in a convent, the merchant's son pressed into an unwanted alliance. Some are lost forever. Others will carry the stain of the garden until the end of their days. But the horror does not end at the garden wall. In a world obsessed with purity and honor, the stain of accusation spreads, family names erased from ledgers, fortunes seized on the word of a rival. You recall the case of Isabeau d'Ar, who, in 1412, was ruined not by any act she committed, but by a single rumor born among the laurels. Her dowry reclaimed, her siblings denied marriage, her father stripped of his offices, all because the garden kept a secret no one dared to name. You realize this is the true purpose of the ritual. Not pleasure, not romance, but a machinery for policing, dividing, and controlling. It is here, in the clarity of morning, that you recognize how these horrors survived not in spite of their cruelty, but because of it. The garden was never a space apart from society. It was its beating, secret heart. The rules inside these walls echoed those enforced in the courts, the churches, the homes of the powerful. The machinery of the garden simply made visible what lay beneath the surface. A world in which desire, reputation, and ruin were inseparable, and where the pretense of civility gave cover to the most systematic forms of exploitation. You recall a fragment from a letter penned in 1475 by a Parisian novice who wrote, "I have seen the games in the laurels. Those who win do not smile long, and those who lose are never spoken of again." The echoes of last night are everywhere, in the hesitancy of your own footsteps, the way you glance over your shoulder, the tightening in your chest as you remember the steward's ledger, the bishop's eyes, the hush that followed every accusation. But here is where the reflection cuts deepest. You begin to sense the garden's shadows stretching forward through the centuries, curling into the present. The same techniques survive in new forms: public shaming, whispered rumors, the policing of reputation and desire. You see how every institution with the power to reward or destroy can create its own garden, each with rules as arbitrary, punishments as inescapable, and pleasures as perilous. You leave the garden behind, but it does not leave you. The lessons you carry are not gentle ones. You have seen what lies beneath the romance and roses, the system that turns intimacy into ammunition, secrets into shackles. The garden was not a place apart, but a mirror of the world itself. You came here believing medieval love gardens were sanctuaries of romance. Now you know the chilling reality. Every petal masked a blade. Every invitation could be a trap. If discovering these hidden truths has changed how you see the past, hit subscribe now to keep uncovering the buried realities that textbooks refuse to touch. You deserve to know the real story. The next garden may be closer than you think.